We're going to do another walk around video. This time these are the Bushplanes, float planes that I've done just in the last couple of years. So you might recognize the Aeronca Champion on floats from our the YouTube channel from Haywood Planes. And again, that was done using the Guillow floats. Guillow makes one float kit. And they made it for the DeHavilland Beaver, which is a 1/24th, might even be 1/28th scale. I never really looked at what the scale of it was. But the same floats that fit that model are also going to work on the 1/18th scale Champ, and they work on the larger Stinson from Dumas. The Stinson is the SR-10 from Dumas, and the same float kit here, with a few modifications. I added about a 1-inch long spacer block here, just a solid wood block. So we laid up the floats, infilled them, and then sliced them right at the step, and then added a 1-inch block here. And that makes them long enough. Floats are required to be 75% of the fuselage length in order to work. That's one parameter. There's a few others. Obviously, they have to be able to support the weight of the airplane in the water and be positioned in such a way that the airplane cannot tilt forward. And so adding the block helps. And the other thing that would have helped that I thought about doing, and then at the last minute I decided not to. I just went with the infill. But if I were to do this one again, I would skin these across the outside after infilling them. So infill, slice, add a 1-inch block, reassemble them there, and then skin them, the outside of them, with a 1/16 inch thick balsa. And that would have added, I think, just the right amount of size. They might almost be a little bit on the small side to the scale of this airplane, but they look okay, so I left it. As you can see, everything is rigged. Again, we have to, or we want to rig the water rudders to the air rudder and put all the bracing wires in, and so that's been done. The Stinson is it's a larger scale. It's probably the same scale as the Aeronca Champion at roughly 1/18th scale. We built up the interior. We put a panel, an instrument panel, and seats, and a cabin. Fleshed it out, put in a pilot, and so forth. I typically hang these up so they're modeled as if in flight. That's pretty typical. That's how the Aeronca was done, and you can see that entire build on the channel. The Stinson was done about 1.5 years ago, and I did that in park green and plain white. We actually used the refrigerator white, the whiter white on this one, and then on this is the DeHavilland Beaver on floats, and as you see, there's no aviator modeled in this one, and this was the first of the 3 that I built. This one I built about 2.5, maybe 3 years ago. So again, this is a Guillow kit, the DeHavilland. It's done in cherry red and white. The black is from the decals provided with the kit. The kit comes with where the red is typically blue. I just painted red instead. Didn't use the decals. Sag in that rudder line. But again, we rigged it up, rigged the floats, put the bracing wires on. On this one, the float supports are aluminum. In fact, on all 3. These are the airfoil aluminum struts, which are typical of the DeHavilland Beaver. The Stinson uses round tubing, as does the float kit or the float assembly on the Aeronca Champion. That's just a round tubing. The steps are done with L-shaped plastic, styrene from Evergreen Plastics. They make L shapes, square, round tubing, all kinds of different extruded plastic. On the DeHavilland, because it just uses aluminum bar, I replicated that with painted toothpicks, actually. We did up a panel for the DeHavilland, done in the DeHavilland style. I'm not sure how well you'll be able to see that. The throttle quadrant propeller controls are up in the center of the console there, and then the dials. And the seats are done with masking tape, sailcloth from a tall ship model left over. And they're upholstered just by wrapping the balsa seat cores, I guess you'd call them. The basic element of the seat is just wrapped with the sailcloth, and the masking tape used to seal it looks like either leather or vinyl trim on the seats. So anyway, it's pretty basic. It's all infill, my typical assembly. And these are the float planes that I've done over the years. So you can see that they all build out into pretty nice representations and decent scale models when you do infill. And they don't make plastic models of any of these aircraft, at least not in a decent scale. 1/48th, I think, maybe for a Stinson Reliant. Same with the DeHavilland, you can probably find that in 1/48th. I'm not sure you can find a plastic Aeronca, but if you do, it'll look like a plastic Aeronca. So anyway, that's pretty much why I do the balsa kits. You can't find these kinds of aircraft. Typically, plastic is dedicated to what sells, and what sells are the warbirds. Now you can do warbirds in balsa too, and I've got a couple of them, or at least one at this point. And you can do that just as easily with the infill method in balsa as you can, and you get a much larger and more detailed airplane out of it. But anyway, I just thought, we do these walk-arounds on the Beaver. I did mock up the exhaust using some leftover plastic parts from different kits, and you can see the paint turned out pretty good. The windows on these pretty much always laid over the outside after the cabin and the sides and everything are assembled, and right before, or just after paint rather. So that they could look better, but that is what it is. And if I want to go a little deeper, there's ways to actually mock up window frames and use the acetate and install with window frames into the window openings. And that may be next. I mean, that may be something I decide to do as an evolution to kind of make it look a little better. You can see overall it doesn't look bad. The kit supply decals are on this one. On the cowling for this was kind of an odd situation. And the cowling provided did not fit over the motor that I wanted to use. So I used the bottom of an aspirin bottle. Just cut out the bottom of it here, and then sliced it off about an 1.25 inches, 1 1/8 from the end. And that fit on there pretty good. So our Stinson Reliant SR-10 Aeronca Champion, which you're familiar with from the channel, and you can see it going together. And this is the most recent build, so that it's probably a little more detailed, a little bit better finish. Over the 2 or 3 years, I got a little bit better at the finish work and getting everything smooth sided. I could have done a much better job on the Reliant, but it looks It looks good and it's square. On this kit, when you want to do floats, this part was added. It doesn't come with a kit. I had to fabricate the landing gear stubs, and you know the reason for that is that what's supplied with the kit is just the kind of an inadequate landing gear leg, and just taking the top of that off would not have been sufficient to both anchor the landing gear struts, the float struts, and the wing strut. And this is what the way the stubs actually look on the prototype on the real world aircraft. So I just carved those from balsa, and they turned out okay. This thing has a massive cabin on this airplane. Apparently it was a real gas guzzler too. These were prominent airplanes. The DeHavilland I wanted to build because that is the most effective and ubiquitous float plane in North America, Canada, Australia, Alaska, and places around the world. They fly all over the world. It's a durable and robust airplane. The Reliant, because of the gull wing, is kind of an iconic airplane. They were used in bush flying applications, float applications, amphibious, and also tundra application, where the tundra wheels, and off airport operations and so forth. And so that's why I wanted to model this as a bush plane, as a float plane. And then the Aeronca Champ was just another versatile and massively and vitally important civilian airplane for the American market. So anyway, there they are. Kind of a walk around of recent builds, stuff that I put together before I decided to do the channel. Thanks for watching.